Right, good morning everyone. I want to introduce myself. I'm Mark Hutchinson, founder, CEO and owner of the Iconic Cafe, and I'm holding Bella. Bella is our little Maltipoo. She's had a little operation yesterday to be spayed, and she's very delicate, so I hope you don't mind she's joining us. Anyway, I wanted to follow up with the Iconic Cafe podcast number 2, following my visit to Venice Beach, seeing Edward Hutchinson, my son, who's running a realtor company, Hutchinson Johnston, and he approached me to discuss the Iconic Cafe and my habitual problem of collecting. So having got back to the UK with the rather grey weather, I'm here to talk about how I got into collecting and essentially to sort of try and develop a conversation long term about items, iconic this and trading, etc. But I wanted to share with you, I was out last night seeing My Generation, which is an amazing film done by Michael Caine and the film producer maker called David Batty. And it's all about Michael Caine as a teenager in the 50s, coming from the East End, wanting to try and break into films, and how his generation and the likes of the Rolling Stones and Beatles, from sort of the real working class people who up until that point had no opportunity, broke through with their music and their lifestyles, the discotheques, and it's a fascinating film for about an hour and 27 minutes, and it was followed by a live interview from 400 cinemas. And it made me think that in fact probably the reason why I am so obsessive about collecting is largely because of the influences of my teenage years in the 60s, which was really influenced by television. The colour television came in. I remember watching the moon landing, and then there were films. I remember the James Bond film, Dr. No, 1962, and then there was Goldfinger and From Russia with Love, or and vice versa. And then there were TV programmes that I got obsessed with, which such as The Saint, The Persuaders, The Avengers, The Baron, Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I think probably as I came into my late teens, early 20s, I wanted to recreate or have a benchmark of all those things that I had watched or been influenced by and wanted a bit of nostalgic. So I ended up collecting corgi toys, TV related. So I got here a James Bond DB5, and there's also another one here which is the much rarer edition. And then I've got a supercar. Jerry Anderson used to do with Silver Anderson these puppet shows, Thunderbirds, Fable XL5, Supercar, Stingray, and I was obsessed with that, and they all had TV related items to collect, and so I've amassed a whole section of that. And then probably as I got older I wanted to aspire to own some of the cars, and over the years I've managed to acquire some very amazing cars, Ferrari Dinos, Porsches, Aston Martins, and I've currently got a collection that I'm looking to move on because I can't keep them all. And off that spawned things like watch collecting. So from the James Bond films, I wanted to aspire to own a Submariner. So here's a 6538 as worn by Sean Connery in Dr. No, and I think From Russia with Love appeared on a number of occasions. Supposedly owned by the film director. I think it was Mr. Hamilton who took it off, and Sean Connery wore with a NATO strap. And the moon landing, I remember I bought a Speedmaster. This is a vintage Speedmaster from the early 60s to the moon landing. And some of the films that I watched, such as Paul Newman and Robert Redford in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, spawned collecting for the Paul Newman Daytona. And then sunglasses. I remember watching The Italian Job with Rossino Brazzi driving the Lamborghini Miura, wearing the pair of these glasses. And then Tom Cruise aviators, these are vintage. And then Clint Eastwood, Harry Callahan, I think it was, wearing a pair of Ballaramas, and things like that. So the whole thing became rather obsessive, and I then moved into Americana. I got obsessed with Winchester repeat rifles and Civil War, movie posters for all those films and things which I've collected, Hawaiian shirts. I always felt every guy should have a Hawaiian shirt, and if you're going to have a Hawaiian shirt, then you should have a vintage Hawaiian shirt. So I've got a collection of those as well. Chopper bikes, rally chopper bikes from the 70s, and Honda monkey bikes. Mobile phones technology. I've gone back and acquired the Motorola 8500X, which is the brick phone. And I feel myself now moving in. I can almost feel that I've got this obsession with French cars. So the Citroën DS, which is an amazing revolutionary car from 1955, sort of celebrated its 60th year 3 years ago. And I'm still obsessed with that. And the Peugeot, and then there's Renault with their new Alpine launched in December, which I've been using on Instagram or sending photographs and joining lots of followers. So there's a whole topic that I'm sort of involved in. I had originally wanted to have the Iconic Cafe as a destination location, a physical place where I could display this stuff and share conversations in person. But I think the practicality of renting or leasing a premises, buying insurance, paying the rates, being worried about being a target theft risk, are all the things that have been a challenge. And so with social media, and now with YouTube and Instagram, maybe there's a way, and Edward from my first podcast, one on March the 5th, has re-inspired me to sort of maybe this information I can share, and maybe there are others. There are lots of people or networks of people that I've met over the years in the various topics that I've chosen to specialise in, and maybe there'd be interest to interview one or two of them. Or if you've got any questions or any particular item, if you're very aspirational to acquire something for your nostalgia, I'd be very happy to help and to share some of the thoughts I've had and some of the paths that I've gone down, and perhaps share some of the mistakes I've made. So, in closing podcast number 2, with Bella, who's been a very good girl, I look forward to feedback and look forward to taking this further. Thank you.